This isn't going to be another review of the BMW R1300GS. It's more of a story about what it's actually been like to live with this bike over the past 2 years. There are already plenty of reviews out there, some from people who rode it for a few hours, others after a few days, and some after putting a few thousand kilometers on it. Hopefully, this one will be a little different. Over the last 2 years, my passenger and I have covered 50,000 kilometers on this bike, usually fully loaded with luggage, riding all over Europe, from the Balkans to the Alps. It's seen motorways, twisty mountain roads, gravel, rough roads, long-distance touring, scorching heat, pouring rain, freezing mornings. Pretty much everything a touring bike is likely to face. We even got caught in the snow once. Now, this bike isn't perfect. It has its flaws, just like every other motorcycle. And since I'm definitely not loyal to any particular brand, I'd like to think I can stay fairly objective. Everything you'll hear in this video comes from my own experience after 50,000 kilometers. The things I like, the things I don't, a few ideas on what BMW could have done better. And by the end, I'll answer the question that probably matters most. Would I buy this bike again? So let's start with the obvious question. Why did I even want a new bike? Back in 2023, I started thinking it was time for a change. Partly because, well, I'm still young and a bit stupid. At the time, I was riding a 2020 Honda Africa Twin. It had reached the point where it just didn't intimidate me anymore. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't replacing it because it was a bad motorcycle. It wasn't. I simply wanted something with more power, more technology, and something that felt like the next step. So I started looking at what my options were. Since we almost always ride 2 up with luggage, passenger comfort was one of the biggest priorities. Whatever came next had to work for both of us, not just for me. The shortlist included the KTM 1290, the BMW R1300GS, the Triumph Tiger 1200, and the Ducati Multistrada V4S. Every one of them was compared against my Honda Africa Twin. One thing became obvious almost immediately, just from sitting on them and checking them out. When it came to rider and passenger space, the Africa Twin was still the winner. It offered the most room, while the R1250GS felt the most cramped, especially in terms of seat length. Another thing that mattered to me was the final drive. I've never been a fan of cleaning and lubricating chains, so both the KTM and the Ducati started the race with a disadvantage. As for the R1250GS, it simply felt too short for the way we travel. As I narrowed down the options, I found myself leaning more and more towards the Triumph Tiger 1200. So why did I end up buying a BMW instead? Simple. BMW unveiled a new model, the R1300GS. The older GS models never really appealed to me. They just weren't my kind of bike. Ironically, that meant the new one suited me perfectly. A lot of long-time GS fans weren't exactly thrilled with the redesign, while I looked at it and thought, finally, a GS I actually like. Even from the first photos, it looked much more modern than the previous generation. More importantly for us, BMW had also redesigned the seating position, giving both rider and passenger noticeably more room than before. The Triumph was still a very serious contender, but the new R1300GS offered a few things that really mattered to me. Adaptive cruise control, the electronically adjustable windscreen, and overall it just felt like a much newer generation of motorcycle than the Triumph. So, poor Triumph finished second. Again. Back in 2020, I was already choosing between the Tiger 900 and the Honda Africa Twin. I bought the Honda back then because KTM somehow managed to make selling me a 790 Adventure surprisingly difficult. Their dealer network had a rather interesting attitude. Maybe that's why they went bankrupt in 2025. But that's a story for another day. In January 2024, BMW made me an offer I simply couldn't refuse, so I ordered the R1300GS. My Honda found a new owner in May. The BMW finally arrived in August, almost 7 months after I placed the order. So much for the riding season. I spent most of it without a motorcycle. But once the bike finally showed up, that's where the real story begins. When the bike finally arrived, we didn't waste any time. There was no long honeymoon period. We just packed our luggage and went touring. No foreplay. With the Honda Africa Twin, we covered 53,000 kilometres over 3.5 years. With the BMW, we received 50,000 kilometres in just 2. At that point, you're well past first impressions. You know the bike. You know what it does well, and you know where it could be better. The very first thing we noticed was something that didn't affect me at all. It affected my passenger. Compared to the Honda, the BMW was actually a step backwards in terms of passenger comfort. My passenger simply didn't like the original BMW seat as much as the one on the Africa Twin. We eventually replaced it with a custom seat, and that made a noticeable difference. It's much better now, but it still hasn't matched the Honda. I find that a bit surprising on a motorcycle that's built for long-distance touring. Now, you could argue that's what the GSA is for, but let's just say its looks are an acquired taste. Overall though, I do think the BMW is the better motorcycle. To be fair, that's not a completely equal comparison. The BMW is a newer design, so you'd expect it to improve on quite a few things. So let's move on to the things I actually like about the bike. The first thing that stands out to me is the technology. I'm one of those people who genuinely likes new technology and electronic gadgets on motorcycles. Just because something is new doesn't automatically make it useful though. After this much time with the bike, you find out pretty quickly which features actually make riding better, and which ones are mostly there for the brochure. Take collision warning, for example. That was one of the first things I switched off. I just never felt like I needed it. On the other hand, there are a few systems that BMW absolutely got right. Some of them I'd even make mandatory on every touring bike. The first one is adaptive cruise control. It's easily one of my favourite features on this bike. I use it on long tours, motorways, faster country roads, and even through towns. It's not about the bike riding itself, it simply takes one more thing off your mind. On a long day in the saddle, not having to constantly hold the throttle in boring sections makes a bigger difference than you might think. To me, this is exactly the kind of technology that actually improves the riding experience. The electronically adjustable windscreen is another one. People often ask, why would you ever need that on a motorcycle? The answer is simple. You don't miss it until you have it. Then you end up using it all the time. Motorways, mountain roads, rain, cold mornings. I'm constantly adjusting it depending on the conditions. And honestly, BMW could take it one step further. The bike already knows your speed. Why not let the windscreen adjust automatically? Come on BMW, give us the adaptive windscreen adjustment. You're welcome. Another feature I'd honestly make mandatory is the tyre pressure monitoring system. I keep tyre pressure displayed permanently in the information bar on the dashboard. It's one of those features you don't really appreciate until you've had a slow puncture miles away from home. As for the bike itself, the engine, the brakes, the suspension and the lights are all better than they were on my Africa Twin. To be fair, that's exactly what you'd expect from a newer motorcycle. The bike feels incredibly stable, especially through corners and at higher speeds. There is a downside though. What I feel as improved stability, my passenger mostly feels as a firmer ride. And since the roads around here aren't exactly famous for being smooth, she notices every extra bump. One of my favourite options on the bike has to be the forged wheels. They may not be the most important feature, but I genuinely think they're beautiful. They were actually one of the reasons I chose this particular specification. To me, they make the whole bike look that little bit more special. Oddly enough, as far as I can tell, you can't even order them nowadays. Of course, no motorcycle is perfect, and neither is this one. Just like there are plenty of things I really like about it, there are also a few that I think BMW could have done better. Some of them are genuine issues for me. Others are simply strange decisions on a motorcycle in this price range. Let's start with the biggest one, the quick shifter. Without a doubt, it's the weakest part of the bike. Now, to be fair, the gearbox itself isn't the problem. If I use the clutch, everything works just fine. The quick shifter, however, still catches me off guard from time to time. Unexpected hesitation, occasional jerks, the odd clunky shift. It's simply not as smooth as I'd expect from a premium touring bike. Then again, I came from a Honda DCT, and in my opinion, that's still the benchmark. So yes, the bar was pretty high. Next up, the heated grips and heated seats. I'm really glad the bike has both, but the rider gets only 3 heat levels and the passenger gets just 2. The problem is that one setting is often too cold, while the next one is already too warm. 5 levels would have made a lot more sense. It sounds like a tiny detail until you're constantly switching back and forth during a long ride. Another little annoyance is the suspension menu. Sometimes it's surprisingly difficult to tell whether you're currently in road or dynamic mode, or whether pressing down will switch to dynamic, or whether you're already there and it's actually taking you back to road. If you've owned one, you probably know exactly what I mean. I was actually quite happy to see that Alex from Lone Rider was confused by exactly the same thing, so at least it's not just me. The front fork tubes have also been slightly oily almost since the bike was new. Dust sticks to them, so they're always looking a bit dirty. According to BMW, that's completely normal. There hasn't been enough oil loss to cause any actual problem. Their advice? Just wipe them. So, I wiped them. From day one, the bike has also had a slight tendency to drift to the left if I completely let go of the handlebars. It has done this on every set of tyres I've used. It's not something that bothers me while riding. It's not dangerous. It's just interesting. With my Honda, there were times after a tyre change when I could literally ride hands-free in a perfectly straight line, even through gentle bends. I've never managed that with the BMW. Yes, I know, you're supposed to hold the handlebars anyway. Which brings me nicely to the next point, the handlebar grips. After around 30 to 40,000 kilometres, they already showed quite a bit of wear. Then again, I do ride the bike, and apparently you're expected to hold on to the handlebars. It's hardly a disaster, but replacing them certainly isn't cheap. The back indicators. This wasn't something I noticed myself. Other riders pointed it out to me. They told me that when I'm braking, the indicators are surprisingly difficult to see. So it turns out all those reviewers who complained about this right from the beginning were actually right. An odd place for BMW to save a few euros, especially when visibility is a safety feature. Backlit switchgear. This one honestly makes no sense to me. On a motorcycle at this price point, illuminated buttons should simply be standard. At night, you're basically relying on muscle memory. Nice one, BMW. And finally, the rear brake pedal. One of the strangest decisions on the whole bike for me. Mine has the Enduro package, so you can raise the pedal for off-road riding. Great. The problem is, I want to lower it. For me, it's simply too high. Yes, aftermarket companies like Wunderlich sell a lowering kit. I even bought one. I just haven't fitted it yet, mostly because I've been too lazy. It lowers the pedal by about 20mm, which should be just about perfect. The only downside? It costs extra. Of course it does. One question matters more than almost anything else with a touring bike. How does it hold up over time? Almost every motorcycle feels great when it's brand new. The real test comes after tens of thousands of kilometres. That's where you find out what it's really like to live with. And in that respect, the BMW R1300GS has honestly impressed me. During 50,000 kilometres, I haven't had a single mechanical failure. The scheduled services were carried out every 10,000 kilometres, exactly as planned. The bike never left me stranded, it never needed an unexpected repair. That said, there were a few interesting little things I've come across. Not faults really, just the kind of things you only learn after actually living with the bike. For example, I once managed to run the fuel tank completely dry, entirely my own fault, about 50 metres before reaching a petrol station, after 347 kilometres. On the bright side, I learned something useful. When the dashboard says 0 kilometres remaining, there's actually still around 40 to 50 kilometres left in the tank. At least there was on my bike. Another funny one. Once the fuel cap simply refused to open. We're all used to hearing that little hiss when opening a fuel tank. This time the vacuum was so strong that I genuinely thought something had broken. It hadn't. It eventually opened without any drama. There was also one occasion when it looked as if the steering lock had failed. It hadn't. The wind had pushed the handlebars hard enough against the lock that the mechanism couldn't release itself. A small push on the bars and everything worked normally again. The lithium-ion battery also gave me one interesting moment. I've actually seen other owners mention the same thing on BMW forums. After the bike had been sitting for several days, I switched it on and the entire rev counter lit up red. Not exactly what you want to see. Luckily, the solution was simple. Wait a little bit, switch the ignition off and turn it back on. Everything returned to normal. So far, that's worked every time. As for tyres, the bike came with Michelin Anarchy Adventure tyres. After 20,000 kilometres, I switched to the Michelin Anarchy Road. Then, at 40,000 kilometres, I fitted the newly released Michelin Anarchy Adventure 2, which will probably stay on the bike until around 60,000 kilometres. For me, the front tyre lasts roughly 20,000 kilometres. The rear lasts around 10,000. I'm sure experienced tyre testers could tell you all kinds of subtle differences between them. Personally, I never found one that completely changed the bike. My requirements are actually pretty simple. Make it black and make sure there's enough tread left. Although, I still managed to collect 2 or 3 punctures along the way. At 40,000 kilometres, BMW told me the rear brake disc had reached the minimum thickness and needed replacing. That, by itself, doesn't bother me. Brake discs are wear items. I ride 2 up most of the time, with luggage. I use the rear brake quite a lot, especially to help settle the bike through corners. So the fact that it wore out isn't the surprising part. The surprise was how quickly it wore out. 40,000 kilometres felt a bit earlier than I expected on a touring bike. What annoyed me far more though wasn't replacing it, it was the bill. The dealer charged me roughly 20% more for the genuine BMW brake disc than I could have bought exactly the same genuine part for myself. Then they added labour on top. That doesn't feel particularly fair to me. When the front discs eventually need replacing, I'll probably do the job myself instead of taking it to the dealership. Not because I don't trust their work, I simply struggle to justify the price of genuine parts once dealership markups and labour are added. Honestly, I think regulators should take a closer look at how disconnected some genuine parts pricing has become. One final cosmetic detail. My bike is the triple black version. For some reason, there's a bright yellow wiring loom visible on the right-hand side. Mechanically, it doesn't matter at all. I just don't think it belongs on a motorcycle that's otherwise completely black. The dealer managed to hide it a bit better for me. Again, not a problem. Just one of those little details I'd expect BMW to have sorted at the factory. So, after 50,000 kilometres, I honestly can't complain about the bike's reliability. It has simply done what a touring motorcycle is supposed to do. And yes, I'd say that's exactly what you'd expect. As for running costs, my bike came with BMW service inclusive for 5 years or 50,000 kilometres. So, apart from the rear brake disc, I haven't had to pay for anything so far. So finally, would I buy the R1300GS again from BMW? Yes. Looking back, I think I made the right decision in 2024. So far, I have had fewer issues with it than I had with the Honda. That is simply a fact. And yes, I also think it is a better motorcycle than the Africa Twin was. But it is also more expensive, and it is a newer generation motorcycle, so that comparison is not entirely fair. So yes, I would choose this bike again today. But not because I am a BMW fanboy. I am not loyal to any brand. I simply do not see another motorcycle on the market right now that would fit the way I use a bike better. The important thing is that I do not choose a motorcycle based on just one thing. We travel 2-up with luggage over long distances across Europe. For me, things like shaft drive, performance, comfort, electronics, range, service network, and also how tiring the bike is after a long day in the saddle all matter. But if you have another suggestion, leave it in the comments. I'm always interested in hearing different opinions. Of course, there are some very interesting competitors out there. The Ducati Multistrada V4 Rally, for example, is a motorcycle I really like. It looks amazing, it is powerful, and it has a lot of character. But for me, the chain drive is a deal breaker. The KTM 1390 is also a very powerful and interesting bike. But again, it does not have shaft drive, and after my previous experience with KTM, I simply would not rush to give them my money. The Triumph Tiger 1200 is still a very good motorcycle, but in terms of freshness and technology, I think it is falling behind the BMW. And then there is the Moto Guzzi Stelvio. I really like that bike too. It has shaft drive, it is unique, and it definitely has character. However, it is less powerful, and the dealer network is not as strong as what I am used to with BMW. The situation with the Honda Africa Twin is also interesting. The Honda was better in some areas. For example, passenger comfort, and of course, the DCT gearbox. But when riding 2-up with luggage at higher altitudes, for example around 2,000 meters, the extra power and torque of the BMW were noticeable. And honestly, it is very easy to get used to that. If I was configuring an R1300GS again today, there are a few things I would choose differently. I would probably add the adaptive ride height system. Not necessarily because I need it. With my long legs, I can manage without it. But it would make getting on and off the bike much easier for my passenger. I would probably also choose the ASA gearbox, even though I still have not managed to try one after more than a year, despite telling my dealer that I was interested. One thing I would definitely miss though are the forged wheels. As far as I can see, they are currently not available anymore, and that would honestly make me a little sad. So, after 2 years and 50,000 kilometers, would I buy it again? Yes. Is it the perfect motorcycle? No way. Is there anything that could be improved? Of course, there always is. But for the way I use a motorcycle, if I was looking for one bike that can do almost everything, I still do not see a better alternative today. And maybe that is the most important thing. A motorcycle is not good because everyone says it is good. It is good because it is good for you, for what you use it for what you want from it. The only thing that really matters is that you are happy with your choice. And I am. And there is one more thing I think is worth mentioning after 50,000 kilometers. The cost of actually running the bike, including servicing, tyres, brakes, fuel, insurance and other running costs. I'm currently at roughly 20 cents per kilometre. If you pay for the services without BMW service inclusive, that means around €10,000 over 50,000 kilometres. And that does not include depreciation or all the extra accessories and upgrades I bought for the bike. So yes, riding a motorcycle is not exactly cheap. And now, enjoy the rest of the northern part of the Transalpina in Romania. See you!